Opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not WSTU. WSTU does not endorse any product mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU.
The Treasure Coast longest-running local talk radio show is on the air. The Treasure Coast Forum. Get interested, get educated, get involved, and give us a call with your opinions at 220-9788. And here's your host of the Treasure Coast Forum.
Good afternoon, Stuart, Martin County. It's Frank here on Treasure Coast Forum, waiting for Amira Meehan from the Youth and Government chapter of South Fork High School to call in. In the meantime, we've got some show host regulars that have been kind enough to join us. And does yours work?
Can you hear me?
No. Try. Oh my goodness. We'll try it again.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Well, I think actually, you know what? We're going to switch microphones. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Got it.
All right.
How about now?
All right. Whoa. Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
It's that storm coming through.
I'm
It's
telling you,
unbelievable things.
The humidity. And we got Deb Harsh is in the house. How you doing, Deb?
Fine, Frank. How are you?
Good. Good. So a lot of things have been going on in the world.
Yes, there has. I just want to let you know that I'm a part of the middle class.
Yeah.
I didn't own a house. My mother didn't buy a house until I was a teenager. What else didn't I do? That's all I got.
That's all I got. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you know, some of the verbiage that we are inundated with is it hurts your head. You know, if you have to kind of laugh your way through some of this news cycle.
If it wasn't
stuff.
so serious,
yes,
you would.
You have to, but otherwise,
what do they consider middle class now?
I don't. I think middle class is if you can afford a microwave. I think. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it,
Yeah.
just think of the advantages people have today as compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago, or to other countries.
Yes.
You know, they seem to calibrate it. The government does it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you have a microwave, you have to have at least 2 color televisions, a computer,
and 2 cars.
And you might be middle class.
Okay.
But I exaggerate. I'm not sure of how the data comes in on that figure.
Mm-hmm.
So, but middle class has definitely been distorted through the years. And I always look, you know, I guess I'm the oldest one here.
You are?
I think so. 76.
I guess. Oh yeah, you got me beat by 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
All
Got you
right.
beat.
All right.
You don't look it, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But
Yes. Deb is-
it's amazing. Back in 1950,
Mhm.
1960,
Yeah.
people, you know, there was no poverty at that time. I shouldn't say that.
No, I didn't know I was poor.
That's
Everyone
a good way
had
of
the
putting
same
it.
thing.
Exactly.
Everyone had a cookie cutter little starter home,
Right.
introductory home. You lived in suburbia, or if you lived in the city, everyone could afford it. You went down and if you lived in the city, you went to the grocery store, but then you went to the butcher and you went to the vegetable stand, and everyone cooked. And when you went to the grocery store, the frozen food department was maybe two doors.
Correct.
You know,
Exactly.
now
No, I know. Yeah.
there's thousands of items.
And that's maybe a poignant way of looking at how we've developed through the years. But I was trying to get back to 1950, 1960, and what the money that I'm trying to clean up my act. The money that we're paying out and the money that people are receiving that are so-called poor people, and they're getting free phones and free hotel rooms and free this and free that. And I'm just, I just feel rotten that we've gotten this far.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
And that's my frustration. Anyway.
All right. So we've got a caller on our newsmaker line. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hey, is this the world famous Amira Meehan?
I don't know because I thought the show wasn't going to run because there's a hurricane, but I know it's mild on our end.
Yeah. So that's true. No, unless there's, unless we have to come into the studio with waiters on.
And today we almost
That's
did.
true.
But we're good. So
How's the bowling, Amira?
Oh no, we're not bowling. Everything was canceled. I thought the show would be canceled too.
oh, you could have been in the studio.
You could have met me in
Oh.
person. Good grief.
Amira, jump in the car and come on down.
I can't.
Aw.
That's okay.
I don't think so.
You
I
stay
don't think
dry,
so.
please.
I'm already in trouble for not spending time with my family.
Oh, all right. Well, okay. All right. Well, you
I
got
could spend like 10 minutes on here.
Okay, you got it. All right. So tell us about youth in government and what has transpired since your show last week.
But there's like nothing transpiring
Oh, because
there's nobody in it.
oh,
And we don't actually do anything till state assembly other
Hmm.
than write bills, which we haven't even started yet.
okay.
So
All right. So okay. All right. Well, okay. Then tell us about your school career. What do you got going on with that?
I mean, my school career isn't that interesting, but you know what is interesting?
What?
How Christianity might be why capitalism works.
Hey, do share.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't know, it's random. It was like 2 C's, but I like wrote about this in one of my college essays. So basically, I was like watching a bunch of random YouTube shorts, and Margaret Thatcher shows up, and I love Margaret Thatcher. I
Right.
love hearing her speak,
Right.
even though like her, I don't know why, but her face and her hair reminds me of popcorn. But whatever. Anyway, so she was talking about like Christianity and capitalism, and I was thinking about that. So for a long time, I always thought, yeah, it's a belief thing, but I always thought capitalism worked because we're all like inherently selfish, and we just, there's a really good line in 1776 where the guy who plays John Dickinson says that men would rather protect the possibility of being rich than face the reality of being poor, and I think that ties back into that selfishness that makes capitalism work, because we just don't want to share. If we can make it, we can make it, whatever. If someone else makes it instead of us, boo-hoo, whatever. And that's what I always thought. But then when Margaret Thatcher started talking about Christianity and those types of things, where people start believing that there's something above themselves that makes them, by believing in God, they think something's better than them that makes them want to become better themselves or something like that.
Yes.
And I noticed that every single communist regime takes away religion completely.
Right, because they want to
Every
take
single
the
time.
place.
Yeah, they censor. I always thought it was just because they want like a uniformity, or that they always, but then they could always just press for one religion if they wanted uniformity. The fact that they took away religion, period, it's like they don't want you having faith in anything above what already is, because they want you to be content with whatever poor conditions you're in, period, and not hope for anything else,
Right.
which is insane.
But also it does protect their authority, because what they're saying is they are the highest authority in these non-religious belief systems, that, and therefore they are your God. They are whatever you have is through their benefactor generosity,
Yeah.
Whereas in our system, whatever you have is you have the right to acquire things through hard work, and there's nothing wrong with that, And
Right. And the harder you work, the more benefits or things you take, the more toys you get.
right.
And the more goals you make for yourself are stepping stones to get to the point you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And without that capitalism, you wouldn't have had people venturing to the moon, or venturing across the ocean, or venturing wherever,
Right.
or coming up with new drugs without capitalism.
Mhm.
Because if you stifle that capitalism, you're going to stifle research and
Creativity.
development and creativity and
Right.
so forth. Now, you are really a sharp individual. What's her name again? Amira. You're a very sharp Amira. And the fact that you pose this question that capitalism religion can't, I guess, religion, getting back to Jesus Christ and the origin of Christianity. I mean, basically, he was the ultimate socialist,
Correct.
if you think about it.
True.
And that's,
But he did say, right, you give to Caesar what is Caesar's. And so he did
That's
create
private property,
right.
kind
So
of, but
so
it's
this
like
it's
Caesar's
so
private property or
I
whatever.
think he was the first one to address the separation between church and state. And
Yeah.
so-
and there should be maintained a separation.
correct. Yeah. So that's very, very
So
cool.
where did you learn that, Mira? Mira,
Yes.
where did you learn
Yeah.
that?
Learn the Christianity and capitalism together.
Yes.
I just on my YouTube feed, Margaret Thatcher popped up and she talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, you did say that. I apologize, but it sounds like you might have been formulating this opinion or thought process for
Wow.
I
a
think-
while.
a
I
while.
like to say years, but you're not that old to have years behind you,
Well.
like myself.
So I think if I can try to pick Amira's brain, I'm guessing that what she has done is she's been internally posing these questions and trying to understand this. And then when she saw that YouTube video with Margaret Thatcher, it helped to crystallize her thinking. Is that close to what your process was?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's not crystallized. My thinking will never be crystallized. That's
Well.
the first mistake. Because once it's crystallized, it's done.
Okay.
It's over,
Okay.
right? But
It's
like,
it's
I'm
more
really
developed.
interested in how politics and economics and everything tie back to just us being humans. That our understanding of how everything works really shows how much we understand about ourselves, our aspirations and our limitations and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
think it really boils down to people. I don't know. Have you seen the 1942 movie Talk of the Town with Cary Grant?
Probably, but I haven't seen I haven't seen it in a while.
It's
Okay.
so good.
Yeah.
So pretty much, okay, there's Jean Arthur, Ronald Colman, and Cary Grant. Okay. And Jean Arthur is like Airbnb-ing her home to this Ronald Colman guy who's going to be a Supreme Court justice. So he's like this revered legal mind.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, she's hiding Cary Grant and Leopold Dilk. He's an escaped convict. Okay. So he's hiding in the basement or the attic or whatever the heck.
Mm-hmm.
And he's innocent, but the courts didn't find him innocent
I got it.
because there was some power corruption, whatever.
All right.
And so she has this future Supreme Court justice and an escaped convict in the same house.
Perfect.
And
What
so
could go wrong?
Cary, I know, exactly. And then Cary Grant comes out, and since, there aren't any pictures and stuff, she hides all the newspapers. So the Supreme Court justice guy who's visiting has no idea about this convict. And so he's like, oh, I'm the gardener. So they start talking, and they have this whole philosophical discussion. And, since he faced justice in its most corrupt sense, because it was like To Kill a Mockingbird jury where they were all bigots and didn't question anything or whatever,
Right.
right? He has this different opinion of law than the Supreme Court justice guy. The Supreme Court justice guy, he's a he's like in his little bubble,
Right.
and he's read everything through all the law books and everything. He really looks at law as a theory, like an ideal, like rules detached from biases, rules detached from human failings or whatever, and that what have you or whatever. But when you the government, we encourage that. We debate ideas and not people. But the problem is, it's inevitable. Like, it's impossible to separate the knowledge from the knower, right? Because no matter whatever knowledge is discovered, the knower who wields that knowledge imprints some sort of bias, some sort of perspective in that knowledge, and it stays there. And when it passes on to another knower, that other knower will put their own thing. So human imprintation on knowledge and the ideals or whatever is permanent, and it's inevitable, and it's part of the all-encompassing truth, according to our own perception, right? Of course, like God or someone like that will see something differently, but in our own eyes, it's absolutely impossible to brush that off. Even though everyone says you have to get rid of the bias, you should be aware of bias, but
Right.
you can't get rid of it.
Right.
Otherwise, then that's when censorship happens.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, he was arguing that, hey, you are looking at law and you're looking at this situation or blah, 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 and the conditions of the ideal. But a gardener's law book would be very different from the lawman's. And it's really true. And I feel like this whole thing about getting into the head of the common man at the end of the day is the root to any problem or any solution.
Okay.
Mira, a couple things. I would hate to have a philosophical debate with you, number one. Number two, how many black and white movies do you watch? My kids wouldn't touch a black and white movie.
I love them. Rom-coms are my favorite. So this movie was a rom-com, by the way. It was a love triangle between her and the Supreme Court Justice and the Cary Grant.
Right.
Very good.
So
And what
I love
people
them.
in school do you look to mentor or foster your continued thought of that process?
So I'm in the IB program. And
Okay.
what's great about the IB program is it's international, so it's outside of the American school system. And they really encourage you doing your own investigations and learning how you think rather than the outcomes. So we're focusing more on the process than the outcomes. We don't care about the outcomes. Outcomes are just whatever. But what's really important is how you get there. And I feel like that's the whole learning aspect.
What year are you in? This has probably been said before, but what year are you in?
I'm in senior year.
Senior year?
Yeah.
I see good things for you in the future. I really do.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah. Well, me too. I second that. So for those of you that are just tuning in, Amira is my so how does that, is that unofficial? You're my unofficial granddaughter, right? But
Yeah,
through
I'm
adoption.
kind of Italian now.
Yes.
I have fake genes.
Yeah. so
You eat spaghetti, so
Right?
that
Yeah.
constitutes you
or
being Italian.
pizza, right? Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I like gelatos.
And oh yeah, who doesn't like gelato, right? Or a good cappuccino. So very good.
Are you planning on, well, this is maybe silly. Are you planning on going to college? I say that
Yeah.
not a little tongue
Oh
in cheek,
yeah,
but
I'm applying to 20 schools in America and then 5 schools in England.
in England, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you care to
That's a
divulge any
process.
of those, or you want to keep them secret for
Oh
now?
no, I think last show I mentioned that my early action is going to be Yale.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's my early action. That's my biggest priority because they so basically why I'm applying to English schools is because I love the tutorial system that they have and that all of them offer PPE, which is an interdisciplinary degree of politics, philosophy, politics, and economics, like together. And then that's like a pre-law thing, and then you go into law after that. So Yale is one of the few schools here that offer EPE, which is the same thing. They just call it ethics instead of philosophy. It's ethics, politics, and economics. What's also great is that all the Ivy League schools have study abroad in Oxford. So whether Oxford likes me or not, I'm going to get there anyway through somewhere else. Even Ohio State offers that, which I'm applying to that one too. That one's
Even
like a safety
Ohio
school.
State, you say that somewhat pessimistically, that or not pessimistically, but
Because
an editorial
the thing
comment
with-
on
I'm a
Ohio
little
State.
pessimistic with Oxford because it's number one, international students already have disadvantage because they can put less on their application, like there's less things that they could put in. 2, they often don't like American students because they know that any American student who's applying to Oxford is also applying to Ivy Leagues and stuff like that, like I am. And they have a feeling that when the American gets into Yale and they get in Oxford, they'll choose Yale over Oxford all the time. So they think, why should we admit this kid if they're also they'd rather go to another school where they could study abroad and come here. That's another thing. And also that there's this TSA, a special test that I have to take in New York. It's a pain in the butt. I'm looking at these questions and it's so difficult. I mean, I'm practicing, but oh my goodness. And Jesus. And my ACT score is low too, so I can imagine.
Your SAT scores, though, that's really unfortunate. But in today's world, is SATs really that big of a deal?
Well, it is if you don't have anything else, but
Okay.
it's not as big because I know with Yale, they have a test flexible policy where you don't have to submit an ACT or SAT, even though my ACT is not too bad. It's top 9% of the country, so it's a 91st percentile. But that's like Ivy Leagues, they want top 5 or top 4, not top 9. But anyway, so they'll take my AP exams, which I have all perfects on, and then they'll take my IB predicted exam scores, which are all perfect as well, and they'll weigh that equally. So, and then when it comes to state schools, though, my my ACT is to reckon with. I'm just saying for Ivy Leagues, my ACT is not amazing.
Oh, okay. So University of Florida wouldn't be an option for you?
I am applying. It's a safety for me.
Okay. I love that. A backup University of Florida ain't all that bad. But,
No, we all need a backup plan, right?
one last question for me anyway, Mira, is who is your biggest influence in what ideas you have developed, and as you move forward? Who's the biggest influence?
I don't know if it's anyone specific. It's just random. But I feel like the turning point was probably going to be Mr. Frank
Aw.
on the radio show. And this is why I'm going to say it. So a lot of people in my generation, we were born and raised thinking that our feelings are more important than truth. Okay? And this is a huge problem. It's underlying all the social issues that we have right now. A lot of people just love their feelings and love their little bubbles, and they just don't want anything to penetrate that. And what's worse is that everyone is respecting that type of thinking, respecting and like kind of coddling that type of ignorance and innocence and all that, whatever the hell you want to call it. So I was one of those kids, of course. I only learned things if I absolutely had to, what was necessary. I mean, again, when you're a little kid, you only care about what immediately affects you around you. I mean, you don't really want to. And even when you get older, you still don't want to. You look at all these politics. And I know there's this, my bestest friend ever in the world. I love her. She does listen to me, but she thinks politics are divisive and she doesn't want to talk about it at all. Like she won't even leave it up for debate. Like she doesn't, it's fine if you don't want to take a side, but it's worse when you don't want to, talk about it. She only has to she'll only talk about it in private. Like in public, she'll freak out, which I understand that, but she doesn't want anything to do with it. No one wants to look at anything. No one wants to look at a fact. They just want to, go on their phones and live their own lives, and that's fine. And, when I was younger, I was a huge tomboy. And so I always convinced myself that I was a guy, but not in like the gender altering surgery type of dude, but in actual, like, socially a dude. And so when you're little, no one cares. Like dudes welcomed me and girls hated me because I was so mean to them. But, so it was fine. No one cared. But when we got older, like in middle school, my buddy had a birthday party in Universal and we went to a hotel or whatever. I had to stay in a different hotel room than all the other guys. I was the only girl there, right? And so then we would have 2 connecting rooms and it would be locked or whatever. And I'd hear them have fun in the other room. And I was all alone in the other room. And that's when I realized I'm a girl and it's different. And the truth kind of sucked for a little bit. Then I realized it's the truth. I can't just adjust my whole reality and disregard that truth. I have to learn to embrace it and find great things about it. And now I love being a woman and a girl. Despite that, I'm cool with it. Because then I realized that those dudes were doing stupid things anyway that I wouldn't want to do. So, but then I had that, okay, I'm going to accept truth, but I didn't want to explore it. And so the first time I went on the radio show, we were talking about these political things that I had no idea. I didn't know anything about the real world, nothing. I'm a very sheltered kid anyway. So I hardly ever go out. I went to the mall for the first time with my friend without my parents for the first time last week, literally. That's how sheltered I am. So anyway, bottom line is I went and I didn't come back for a little bit because I felt like I don't have anything to contribute because I don't know anything and I don't feel like whatever. So then I realized, you know what, maybe I should start looking at some things. And then I started to really like going. First, I just felt pity that I felt bad that Mr. Frank was all alone because John graduated, who was the other guy. Yeah. So then I started realizing that I started loving it and I started loving to learn things. And also in IB, I went in the junior year. That's when I really got into the IB program. So everything changed. Like everything just changed at once. So I'm so happy and so blessed that it happened because I was zoned for Jensen. I'm 5 minutes away from Jensen. I drive 40 minutes every day to go to
Mira, not to cut you off, but I'm cutting you off. I just have one thing to say that you said something just maybe 5 minutes ago that was so profound that basically we have a two-party system right now. And one is based, my feeling, one is based on touchy-feely, as you would see Miss Harris display. Emotions. Yeah. Oh, we're going to make a new economy and you trust me and I think we can do it.
Right.
I know you can do it if you let me try to do it. If you let me try to correct problems that I've already created and all that. And then you get back to the facts. And it says, Ms. Harris, and you can see where I'm coming from as far as a political
Yeah.
position. Ms. Harris, what did you do in the last 4 years that you want to change now? What are you going to do now that you want to correct from the past 4 years? And nobody wants to. Well, she definitely doesn't want to talk about it. And then, of course, Donald Trump is how should we play it? A little boisterous. That's not even a good word.
Brash.
Braggadocious. But basically, he had a great 4-year run as a president. People were just happy in 4 years ago, and they're not today. So it's a touchy-feely as compared to facts.
Right.
And you've hit on
Yeah.
a very important part of it.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah, that's also why I'm a Republican now too. Because when I was younger, I didn't know much, but as a kid, always on their phone. Yeah, I'm one of them. I'm not on social media, but I'm still on YouTube a lot. That's how I find Margaret Thatcher and stuff like that, right? I'm looking at all this media, and of course, it's very left, especially for the younger audiences. It's very left. BuzzFeed, all these things for little kids. It's super left wing because they're mostly run by younger people who are millennials, and they're mostly left wing too because they're the touchy-feely people.
Touchy-feely.
And so you see all these things, and especially when you're younger, touchy-feely is what you really care about and what you understand easier.
Right.
And also, I also talked about this with Mr. Frank, that when you're a kid and when your entire bubble is just your family, lefty things like socialism makes more sense because when your entire concept of producing and distributing goods parallels to sharing candies with friends or, equally distributing dessert at the dinner table, you start thinking, hey, socialism is the right way to go. When you don't take into account and you don't become aware of how the actual world works, by being a member of civilization, you have signed up to a social contract, especially in this country, to the Constitution of the United States, that certain things are not going to work just like they would in anarchy or in your little, dinner table, because it's going to be bigger. You signed up for something bigger than that. And so people need to get aware about the complexities of how big of a giant that they're a part of. And then once you see that, you start thinking, okay, socialism doesn't work. It's not like a dinner table. It's completely different. It's like a cocktail party.
Yeah. Well done.
Mira, you scare the heck out of me, but you will become a much more staunch Republican when you make your first paycheck and look at how many taxes are taken out.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to toss it to do the toss to Rocky and Bullwinkle and stay on the line if you can, if you got a few more minutes.
All right, take it away, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
All right.
And now,
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
again,
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
But most of the youth and government kids that way, they work that way, because you challenge their preconceived notions,
Sure.
make them think, and then and then they dwell on it like she does.
Yep.
right, we're back. We've got Amira Meehan on the line. Go ahead, Amira. You still with us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So we were having a pretty good conversation before we went to break. I'm sorry we had to interrupt it with, with the break. But yeah, so and I think a lot of during the break, Mike and I kind of chatted briefly, but I think a lot of the youth and government students that have come through the studio here over the years have had some of them came in, already maybe leading right, especially some of the guys that were in the uh, some pre-military programs, that sort of thing. They were already kind of thinking that way, but a lot of other kids, they were open to being challenged and thinking about their position and amending their thoughts too. So that's all part of the growing process, right?
Yep.
Yep. Well, you distill that down to just one word. That's great. So, oh, that's great. Well, it's
I got some bombs to throw out there and,
And-
and give them to Mira and let her just run with it.
right. Okay.
And I'll go home. I'm happy.
So, yeah, right. So what do you think about? You heard of? Excuse me. You heard about the indictment for the mayor of New York? Have you been?
No, I haven't heard about it. What
that
happened?
It came across late yesterday. They said there was going to be breaking news today about the mayor of New York was going to be indicted for taking
Bribery.
illegal contributions, gifts of travel and stuff like that. And
They do this now. They could have done this earlier.
so interestingly enough, and another friend of mine he was off work today because he was supposed to be at work, but because of the hurricane, they asked him, because he lives on the other side of the state. he had to leave work, and so him and I were texting earlier, and he said that, isn't it amazing that the very same guy who was the mayor of a Democratic city that complained about immigration and what the Democrats were doing to his city got indicted. So,
Oh no, they just sit back and wait, and
Do you think-
and the optimum time is, I guess, now. But
you
you're right. Mira's right. Why didn't they do it a year ago? They probably had the goods on them then.
right.
But now is the time.
Well, I think so. It's a little bit like keeping an arrow in your quiver, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
So, what are your thoughts on that?
I still think it's insane that the judicial system is continually weaponized. I don't know if this type of at this scale it was around when you guys were younger. I have no idea.
Absolutely
Was it?
not.
No.
Absolutely not.
or we
Is
didn't.
is there a possibility that you guys weren't aware of it? Like it wasn't
Yes.
informed to the public, disclosed to the public?
It was
Yes.
down low, basically. I mean, I'm sure it was done, but not to the extent it's done today.
It's so brazen.
Brazen now.
Yes.
And timing. It wasn't before an election like it was like this year.
Well, look at the Nixon resignation. All right.
Right.
It's a good case in point. Okay. What has transpired more recently dwarfs what Nixon was accused of doing.
Oh yeah. I always say that. I
Right.
think Nixon was great. I wish Nixon was resurrected and became president again.
Hmm.
He has such interesting things to say.
Mhm.
And I know he tried to cover that up, but everyone makes that's like a little baby mistake
Right.
compared to
Well, the cover up is always the problem. But,
Right.
you know,
that was the biggest problem. I don't think Watergate was always a cover up, in my opinion, that really messed it up.
basically.
Yeah.
Mira, I'm sorry. Riley Gaines has been in the news recently. I'm sorry. An age problem here.
Okay.
A poopah.
Huh?
A poopah.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Remember when Chuck Schumer said that the CIA or the FBI can take you to church or take you to town?
Seven ways
ways.
to Sunday. They have a way of getting even with you.
Yes.
Yes.
And they will make a case. some of the cases, they came back with this is my own personal opinion.
Mm,
Trump was charged with 34 counts of something.
Right.
I couldn't even remember what it was.
right.
And I talked to some people and I asked them, what was he charged with? And they couldn't
no one really
emphatically
No one knows.
say
No one
what
knows.
it was.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, and they came back with a verdict in 2 days, if that.
Mhm.
I couldn't read the counts in 2 days, let
Right.
alone bring charges back
Right.
and indict the guy.
You're talking about the case in New York.
About the case in New York.
Yeah.
And there were 2 attorneys, and we said, okay, that's saving grace. But if they didn't come back with a 12-0 decision,
So
their employers would have known
Right.
that where they voted,
Right.
and they would have said, maybe he's not our type of guy.
Mm.
And they'll put him down in the basement somewhere, opening boxes or
So
something.
there was an appellate case. This case was heard by the appellate
Right.
court today.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And from what I gather, according to Newsmax, there was the appellate court was not impressed with the way the case
Prosecution went in.
the way the case was handled. So it'll be interesting. It might be reversed on an appeal. So
Just at the appellate level, you're saying,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So the appellate court is hearing the case that the judge had decided against.
Even a New York court is saying that
They're
might have
having
been
a
mishandled.
They're having a hard time with it. Have you been following any of this, Amira?
I do remember it being pretty ambiguous and sketchy looking,
Mhm.
and because usually it should be a really simple process. The fact that it's very complicated, it sounds like they're dancing around the truth.
Very
That's what
insightful.
it feels
Yeah.
like.
I was going to say,
Because I really don't know. I think some people are being bribed and then they're hesitating. Some people are like disappearing and then they're coming back.
Or
And I
they-
think it was a bunch of confounding variables that is really giving evil mastermind an aneurysm somewhere.
I was going to say bribing may be a little harsh, missing people may be a little harsh, but you're right. What had happened, now that I think about it, it was basically he misled people in his file. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I got the right case. In his filings for mortgages on those buildings he owns. And the bank gives him a mortgage. They're happy.
Right.
Trump's happy.
So-
Everybody made money.
Right.
And everybody's going home happy. And all of a sudden, there's a litigation saying he lied on his application.
Correct.
Is that the
Yeah.
right? Is that the right one? I
That-
could be mistaken.
That is pretty much the gist of it. And
Yeah.
if no matter how you approach that case, no matter how you litigate it, you can make a case that it was guilty for doing any. Oh no, this case, there was 2 cases. The other case, I think that this appellate court was dealing with, had to do with the lady that was paid money for
The escort.
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels was
Very good, Mira. What are you doing out
Right.
there?
right. She was paid money to not to have a conversation about what took place.
Right.
Right. And
And it was election money or not election money?
that was the
gist.
how it was categorized in the expense was mentioned. It was listed as a legal expense, probably so. But what pot of money did it come from? How's it expensed? We're talking about splitting hairs.
Supposedly, Trump never knew about how it was
Well, that's
an
what-
accounting procedure.
Correct.
Was where it was put.
Right.
Was that done
Exactly.
by Cohen? His
Cohen. Yes, it was
The-
Michael Cohen.
right.
Michael Cohen was,
Was
the attorney.
Right.
who
Was-
actually
is a-
paid Stormy Daniels
Right.
out of his own funds and then received money from the Trump checkbook to pay him back, and it was expensed out as a legal expense. Is that about right, Amira? Is the way you
I
no,
think so.
and there's
Yeah.
one,
That's
there's
what I
one
remember. I
addition.
read about this a long time ago.
There's one
like when it first
additional
blew up.
item
Hmm.
about the election funds,
Hmm.
which is a federal case.
Hmm.
They had the case heard in state courts, and how they mix the two can't be done.
Right.
And if they do it, you would have to throw out the federal counts,
Mm.
and maybe creatively just go forward with the state counts.
Mm.
I don't even know if that's, as I say, that is a layman's.
They would sort of have to throw out both of them, I would think, because it's a conflict of interest for both of them.
because they merge the two.
Right.
But I sit here, I play a lawyer on TV, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not a lawyer. So
right.
therefore.
All right. We're going to let Lion King.
I hear Lion King.
Right. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back. We're going to listen to This Land of Ours, and we'll be right back in 2 minutes. So 2-minute warning. Stay with us. Okay, we'll be a minute and 40 seconds. We'll be back. All right. You can stick with us. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You can stick with us.
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay. All right. Thanks. All right, we are back. You're listening to Treasure Coast Forum, WSTU here in Stewart, and we've got Amira Meehan on the line. Amira, did you know that today is Johnny Appleseed's birthday? Today is the birthday of John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed, born in 1774 in Massachusetts. Chapman was a wanderer and an eccentric. Okay. You go along with that, right? Have you ever followed? When I was a kid, before, I think maybe in grade school and maybe junior high school, I just thought Johnny Appleseed was a cool dude. I just thought that was just a cool.
That's where
thing.
your head was at.
I thought
Daniel Boone was cool.
I thought he was too. I love the
whatever Walt Disney presented.
Right?
That's what I liked.
No, these were things we learned in school and books we read. It wasn't. This was before Disney.
Amira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your classes in school. I know. I tried to scratch a little bit of the surface, but what classes are you taking again?
So I'm in the IB program. So I have full 6 IB classes and then 1 AP for fun. So then I'm in IB English 4, IB Theory of Knowledge, IB History of the Americas, IB Anthropology, IB Mathematics, Applications, Interpretations, and IB Bio. I've done biology for 3 years. I'm so sick of it. And then and then AP Lang. because that's just my fun period.
Do they teach civics to get down to baser
Well, of
levels?
course, middle school, you have to take civics. In 8th grade, everyone takes civics. I mean, again, no one pays attention and no one cares. But the civics literacy exam is the easiest exam I've ever taken. I think it's the easiest exam any of my friends have ever taken. It's really simple. The extent of the American child's knowledge of civics is there are 3 branches of government. The legislative make the laws. The executive, you kind of get that. And then you're like, oh, there's the president, then the vice president, then the speaker of the house, like succession. That's pretty much, you just know that. Then the president pro tempore or whatever. And then you just learn that there are 2 senators for every state, and the House of Representatives is all about the population. And then you learn John Locke, and then you learn, okay, the difference between the Declaration of Independence.
I'm sorry, you learn about John Locke?
In a whole year. Sorry?
You learn about John Locke?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of, for a second.
You skirt it.
Right?
I mean, how much can you teach in civics, right?
They just say that John Locke came up with the, the natural right thingy. And then Thomas Jefferson's like, ooh, cool, and then writes it down. That's all we learn about John Locke. We don't really learn about other things.
I was going to say, I remember Will Olds?
Yes.
He was a teacher that used to do the show with us, Mira.
Oh, okay.
And he actually ran for superintendent of schools, I believe, in Martin County.
He did.
And he had a rough go of it. But in any event, he always thought that, and he taught IP history, I believe, and it may have changed by when he was here. But he said, you really can't teach everything that he couldn't teach everything that he wanted to teach. For instance, the Civil War. How can you possibly condense that into a class of 1, 2, 3 days? At the most, you'll get that. But there's so much more to the Civil War that should be taught, and I guess that it's up to the teacher, which somebody did some excellent work with you, but has to pique your interest to go to the next step and learn about the Civil War.
So unfortunately, I mean, I do have good IB teachers, but in middle school, I did not have any really stimulating teachers, except I did have a good American history teacher in 7th grade. And what made it interesting was that he told it like a story. And I'm a big movie person, so he told it like a movie. We watched so many videos and we would do a bunch of projects and stuff, but it felt like a story to me. That's why it felt like it felt like a reality TV show. There was so much drama, and I kind of wanted to know more.
Yes.
So that's why I liked history, because it was just about people. It was just they were from a different time period. That's the only difference. I mean, that actually makes the drama even more juicier. And
we don't have much time, but I just want to comment that the fact that you had one teacher, I think, puts you way ahead of the curve. Because, as I say, you found something in that gentleman that really stimulated you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what is important that you had one teacher. A lot of kids don't have any teachers. Like you said, a lot of kids don't give a rat's
behind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
About teaching, about education. But you found that one that did stimulate you, and that's important. And it's for you to go find more.
Is that kids think education is just something for the classroom that you just do well in, but really learning is just what we do every day and every minute of our lives, and people don't realize that at all, and kids don't want to. I was one of them. I didn't want to either. Where I was going in middle school, you have no idea. I was one of the angstiest teenagers, like early teenagers ever. It was all about me and all that crap.
Well,
that's at the end of the day, that was kind of how it was. And I remember Mr. Frank and we had this conversation about our education system and how it's 100%, it's terrible, right? Because they want to make kids who are like smart enough to be hired by someone smarter, right? That's what they
Right.
want. They want just about that. Just that threshold of you're not useless, but you're not too good, because we can't have everyone running the world. We need people in McDonald's, and we need people, as like little accountants, whereas, the other people, well, they make themselves. But the thing is, at least we have the freedom in this country when we leave the classroom, and because we don't have many ideas imposed in us in the classroom, because it's just like, hey, follow these directions, whatever, brain dead, you have the opportunity to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't enough, and then you have the freedom to think outside of it really easily. You can easily get away from it. My escape was IB. So you can easily choose to escape from it. Whereas in other countries like China and Japan, where they have all these 10 hours of schooling, where they teach you everything, they teach you everything, they make you regurgitate everything in all these books so that you're really, really smart, but you're only going to be hired by an American at the end of the day.
Right.
Mira, you are wise beyond your years. That's one. And number two is take that philosophy and take it out into the world, and you will be such a successful individual. I wish there were more people like you.
Aw, thanks.
And we want you to come back and check in with Mr. Frank in 10, 15, and 20 years.
Yes.
So we know what you're up to.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not gonna forget my adopted grandpa. Like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm probably when I go to college, like every Thursday, I don't care about the time difference. I'll try my best to call in.
Very good.
Still do the show because Mr. Frank said he was gonna retire, and I'm not gonna let that happen. He's not gonna retire.
You'll be taking over the show.
Well, Amira, it's been a privilege and an honor to be working with you over the past 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just been a joy, and I can't thank you enough for what you bring to our programming and your insightful comments, and it warms our heart and it lets us know as senior adults that there is
Hope.
Hope out there.
Hope
and
in your generation.
and you're a big part of that. So we thank you for that, Amira. And we'll be
Don't
back.
make me cry.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. And we love you, kiddo. All right, and we got to go. Have a great day.
Bye.
You too. Bye.